Hello friends, welcome to my new data structures and algorithm in Java tutorial series video. Friends, in this tutorial we will discuss how to represent a circular singly linked list in Java. So friends, what is a circular singly linked list? So if you see, this is how we represent a singly linked list and this is how we represent a circular singly linked list. So the structure wise circular singly linked list is very much similar to singly linked list. And here you can see in singly linked list we have these nodes which form a chain, and we keep a head node which points to the first node and the last nodes next point to the null. So the only difference between singly linked list and circular singly linked list is that in circular singly linked list the last node points to the first node and not null. So here if you see, in singly linked list the last node next is pointing to null, but in circular singly linked list the last node next is pointing to the first node again and not null. So therefore this property makes circular singly linked list circular in nature, where if you see 1 points to 8, 8 points to 10, 10 points to 16 and 16 again points to 1. So therefore it's a circular in nature. And one more difference is, like in singly linked list we keep the track of the head node which is pointing to the first node, but in circular singly linked list we keep the track of the last node. So in circular singly linked list we keep the track of the last node because it helps us in insertion and deletion of the nodes in constant time. So here if you see, as head points to the first node, and suppose if we want to insert a node in a singly linked list at the end, so we need to traverse each and every node in the singly linked list to reach the last node and then add the particular node. But here in circular singly linked list we are keeping the track of the last node, and if suppose we want to insert a node at the end, so we can directly use this last pointer and add the node at the end. And suppose if we want to insert a node at the beginning, then we know that a circular singly linked list is circular in nature. Therefore, when we do last dot next, we reach to the first node. So we can directly add node at the beginning in constant time. So friend, this is how we represent a circular singly linked list, where we keep the track of the last node and last node next points to the first node. So friends, let's see a demonstration of circular singly linked list. Below you can see that circular singly linked list has 3 nodes having data as 1, 8 and 10, and the node having data as 10 has been referred by the last node, and you can see it's a last node in a circular singly linked list where its next is pointing to the first node. So let's see a small demo how we can create this circular singly linked list. So suppose we initialize a circular singly linked list. So we know that the list is empty, so therefore the last will point to null. So when the list is empty, the last node is pointing to null. Now let's suppose we are inserting this node having the data as 1. So it's a simple node having data as 1 and next is pointing to null. So if we want to insert this node into the circular singly linked list, and as the list is empty, we'll simply assign the value of temp into last, so that last points to this node. So it would look something like this. So now the last node is pointing to the node having data as 1, and we also know that circular singly linked list has property that last next points to the first node of a circular singly linked list. But here if you see, there is only one node. So basically this node is the last node of a circular singly linked list and also the first node. So last next should point to this node only. So it would look something like this. So when we insert a node into an empty circular singly linked list, last points to that particular node and its next points to the node itself. Now let's suppose we want to add one more node having data as 8. So here you can see the temp is pointing to this node having data as 8 and its next is pointing to null. So in order to insert this node into the circular singly linked list having data as 1 and last is pointing to 1. So what we do is, when we insert this node with a value 8, we know that its next should point to the first node. So therefore what we do is we simply break this link and we point it to the first node. So it would look something like this, as temp next is pointing to the first node. And here if you see, the first node is pointing to the second node. Therefore we need to break this link and we need to point it to the second node. So it would look something like this. So now you can see that node 1 is pointing to node 8 and node 8 is again pointing to node 1. So they are circular in nature. And one last step we need to do is, as we have inserted is node 8 and we know that this is the last node, therefore we'll simply assign the value of temp to last. So it would look something like this. So after the insertion of node having data as 8, the circular singly linked list looks like this, where node having data as 8 is pointed by the last node and its next points to the first node. Therefore it maintains a circular property. And let's suppose we want to add one more node having data as 10. So here if you see, the node next is pointing to this first node. So in the first step what we'll do, we'll simply remove this link and we'll point it to the first node. So it would look something like this. So now temp next is pointing to the first node. And here you can see that second node is pointing to the third node. So but here second node is pointing to the first node. So we need to simply break this link and we need to point it to the third node. So it would look something like this. And one last step we need to do is, when we have inserted this node having data as 10, we know this is the last node, therefore we simply need to refer the value of temp to the last. So it would look something like this. So friends, here if you see, we inserted 3 nodes and we knew that node 1 is the first node and node having data as 10 is the last node, and here the last node is pointing back to this first node. So therefore we saw how circular singly linked list is created and how they maintain a circular property. So friends, in this tutorial we discuss how we can represent a circular singly linked list in Java. In my next tutorial we will see how we can implement circular singly linked list in Java. I hope you liked this video. Please like, comment, share and subscribe my YouTube channel. Thanks, have a nice day.